There you are. Yes, and I can see your screen.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Greg Nacu and I am from Canada. This is my second time speaking to Commodore Users Europe, so thank you for inviting me back. Almost exactly 1 year ago to this date, I gave a demonstration of C64 OS. C64 OS is a project I began in 2017 when I came back to the C64 after some years away. It's taken a few years to get from nothing to something, but the good news is that I'm ramping up for a commercial physical release of C64 OS version 1.0, and that should be available this summer. I'm in the process of a major update to c64os.com, but you can learn more by going there. And I'd love to show you what's new. So we'll start by booting up. Almost everything has been tweaked and improved since last year. The logo has been updated. The booter is now much more modular than before, allowing for more customization of settings, drivers, and components. So we're taken first to the app launcher. I showed this last year, but to recap, it is a desktop-like environment with support for up to 5 configurable desktops. Each can have a backdrop and a hint color, and each can have up to 32 color-coded aliases. So backdrops can be decorative, but they can also be functional. So on this desktop, the background has been designed to help you to visually organize the aliases by type. So aliases can be moved, one at a time, but they can also be moved in groups. So I can, drag. I'm just going to rearrange these. Just kind of cool. So this kind of thing. So I could do this as well. So that's kind of cool. And then using the standard color picker, in addition to being able to change the color of individual aliases like this, you can also change the hint color. So just click on the desktop, and then you can click on these, and you can change the hint color. Now, what if you want to change the backdrop itself? So for that, we can go File, Change Backdrop. Now, the biggest change to C64 OS over the course of the last year has been the addition of several important utilities that begin to realize the flexibility of the system. So the Open utility looks a lot like a trimmed down version of the file manager, which I'll show later. But the Open utility can be used concurrently with the application. So, I can move this utility around and the application is still fully functional beneath it. So we have this like vertical split here, so you can choose like how much space you want to devote to each of the two halves. And on the left-hand side here, we have a list of the detected devices. And then below that, we have a list of recently opened files. And we can click on the recents header to flip it into, or to toggle it into favorites mode. So you can customize favorites, and then these become like quick places that you can jump to. Now on the right-hand side of this, we have the list of files in the current directory. And just like in the file manager, we can click the column headers to sort by these various criteria. And we can also resize columns, like so. And then we have this path bar above the list of files. The path bar shows kind of a visual, gives you a visual indication of where you are in the file system, and also lets you navigate up the tree. So now I'll navigate back down. And now let's say I want to change the backdrop. So I'll say I'll pick this one, hit select. And we can window shade the utility to get it out of the way really quickly. And then you can see what what backdrop you've just picked. So let's say now I want to pick maybe this one. Okay, so that's kind of cool. Now, you note that as I pick these files, the list of recents is being updated over here. So that's convenient because, even if I navigate away to some other directory or even to another device, if I want to go back to, say, that split panels one that I had originally, I can see it in the list of favorites, and I just click it, and I'm taken right back to the directory where that is, and it selects that file. I can hit select, and now I'll just close this utility. And I'm right back to where I was before. So next, I'm going to use the app launcher to launch into the test ground application. So I use test ground to try out new features and new user interface controls. C64 OS includes an object-oriented widget toolkit that makes it easy to build sophisticated and dynamic user interfaces. So this app showcases, it's just a sample app, but it showcases a collection of toolkit views and controls and how they can be snapped together. So we have another vertical split here. And on the left-hand side, we have a scrollable region. And this shows that scrollable regions are not limited to simple things like lists and tables, but they can actually scroll like complex layouts of other views. So for example, we have labels and we have radio button groups and checkboxes. We have cycle buttons, so you can cycle through and they wrap around like Amiga cycle buttons, regular push buttons. And then we also have text fields now. Text fields weren't available last year. So I'll just make this a little bit wider. We can type into this text field. Something like that. So you note that, as I type into the field, that the content is scrolling. And also, I can scroll back through it and I can edit, I can edit this text in here in the middle of the field. And then, oh, look at that. I accidentally typed the address into the name field. So that's no problem. I can make a selection of text. So I can make selections either with the mouse or I can also use the keyboard. So I'll just select the end of the field. I can hit Commodore X to cut that to the clipboard. And then I'll click into the address field and I can paste that into the address field. Now, additionally, text fields can have content filters and also content remapping. So this age field, for example, it won't take anything except numbers. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the utilities menu here, and I'm going to open the calculator. Okay, so now I've got the calculator open concurrently with this app. And I'll type in 2022, which is this year, minus, say, 1982, which is the year the Commodore 64 came out. We can see that the C64 is 40 years old. So now from the calculator, I can copy, with Commodore C, I can copy the contents of the calculator, and I can click in the age field, and I can paste that data into that field. So that shows that the clipboard can be used to move data not only between fields within an app, but also between apps. And also it can be used to move data between a utility and an application. So next, on the right-hand side of this sample app, we can see I have like this tab view with these cool little tab icons. So the first tab has got a sample of a table with two-dimensional scrolling and columns that can be resized. The second tab is just showing like a basic like one-dimensional list. And then the third tab, this is showing a multi-line text control. So the text is being dynamically wrapped inside the available width. And in addition to being able to scroll using the mouse, there's also keyboard controls. So I can say use the cursor keys to scroll a bit at a time. And I have keys for being able to page, or we can say go home. Now, the really cool thing about the toolkit, sorry, pardon the biblical references. The really cool thing about the toolkit is how flexible it is. So you see how I have this, this kind of footer view down here. I can hide that, this checkbox, and the text view expands to fill the available space. And I can also say hide the menu bar, and I can hide the status bar. That's something you can do in any application to get even more vertical space if you want. And so now check out this. As I resize this splitter, it rewraps the text into the available space on the fly. And as it does that, you can look at the scroll bar, and it's readjusting the height of the scroll bar to show how much content there is. So as I go like this, you can see that the scroll nub is getting smaller. Yeah. So, and it's pretty fast, right? Like it's doing all this rewrapping and re-rendering, and the machine only runs at 1 megahertz. So now I will just kind of bring everything back to the way it was before. Just bring the menu bar back, bring the status bar back, bring the footer back, and I will choose System Go Home to return to the app launcher. So next, I'm going to open the settings utility from the utilities menu. So settings utility is kind of it's a meta utility that collects together other utilities that are meant to customize the settings of the system. So I'll use it to open the time utility. This is a new one that wasn't available last year. So from the preferences tab in the time utility, we can do things like customize the way that time appears throughout the system. So as I click on changing it between say 12-hour time and 24-hour time, you can see that the menu bar clock is actually changing on the fly. I can show or hide the menu bar clock altogether, or toggle whether the seconds are blinked. And in addition to that, I can choose what utility I want to be opened when you double click in the menu bar clock. So I'll say that I want it to open the today utility. Next in here, we have a timer and a stopwatch. So you get this cool time setter that you can with these double high numbers that I think look pretty awesome. And you can click on the tops and bottom of these sections to adjust these numbers, and then we can hit start, and the timer counts down. I'll actually play a SID tune when it hits 0. The stopwatch is basically you reset to 0 and then it counts up. So it's just another kind of mode of this control. And then the clock tab, this shows standard date picker and time picker controls. So we can click on these. We can even hold, and it'll cycle continuously on these date segments. And these things handle like how many days there are in a month, and it handles leap years and stuff. And when you hit set, this will push the whatever date and time you set here, it'll push it to the real-time clock that you are using to configure the time for your operating system. And it does that by sending the time back through the real-time clock driver that you've configured. C64 OS has support for a bunch of real-time clocks, and more are going to be added. So next, I'll double click on the time here in the menu bar. And that opens the utility that I asked it to from preferences. So we get this today view. Now, I showed this last year, but now we have the ability to set simple notes on individual dates. So the little indicator here tells us what dates have notes. So here's the note for this event. We have other notes. That's really all there is to show for that. So next, I'm going to switch from the app launcher to the file manager. So the app launcher, as I said, as the file manager, as I said, it looks a bit like the open utility because it has a similar layout of the split with this sort of standard sidebar. But the file manager has many more features. So the file manager has these 4 tabs up here that allow us to be in up to 4 different places at the same time. So the Go menu lets us jump the current tab to a bunch of different standard places. So we can go to the system directory, or we can jump to the applications directory, or we could jump to the utilities directory, or we can go to documents, or in addition, we can go to games, music, or pictures. Now, in addition to using the Go menu, those options are available with the function keys. So I can hit, F3 to go to games, F5 for music or audio, F7 for pictures. But then you might say, well, okay, but where are those actual places? So to configure that, we can choose options and places. And that opens this panel here. And you get these fields for each of the 4 customizable places. Now you can edit these paths manually, but of course you can also copy and paste places from the file manager. So you can navigate to a place, choose copy place, and paste it into these fields so you don't have to manually manage them. So of course, those are just sort of some standard kind of default places like games and pictures and stuff. But maybe you want to have like a custom favorite. So I'll use the Go menu and I'll say go to my root directory. And I'll scroll down here and I'll go in to say my presentations directory. So if I wanted to have quick access to my presentations directory, I could choose option, add favorite. And then boom, you can see that it's just put this here onto the list of favorites. So the list of favorites is global to the whole operating system. And anything that uses this standard places sidebar will automatically get access to them. So the sidebar is used, for example, in the open and the save utilities, which get opened inside other applications. So you can customize your favorites from File Manager and then get quick access to those favorite places inside other applications. So last year, I showed the sort of basic file management, like doing recursive moving or copying of files and directories using the File Manager. But I actually didn't have the ability to do something simple like rename files. So this year, I'll show you how you can rename files. So I can just pick a file here like this and say file info. And we get this little panel here, and I can immediately just start, editing the file name like that. Hit return to trigger the default button, and I've renamed that file. Now, this utility functions like a floating palette, just like the color picker kind of functions like a floating palette. So does this file info utility. So I can now click on the directory behind, and as I move the selection, it automatically reflects that file in the file picker, in the file info panel, and it shows some other metadata about the file. So I can maybe cursor up to here, and I can also change this file name, hit return, and I've changed that file name. So the next thing that we can now do in the File Manager, finally, is we can open documents and data files. So text files can be opened using the text view utility right from within File Manager. So I've prepared a text for you guys. So I'll just say file text view. So here we are. C64 OS team wants to thank everyone for welcoming me back to present at Commodore Users Europe. It's hard to believe a whole year has passed since my last presentation, and I hope you'll agree that a lot of great new developments have been made since then. It's been hard work, but a lot of fun too. So this text view utility is based on a text rendering class in Toolkit. It's the same one actually that we saw in the test ground app, but it also has support for a new lightweight markup format for C64 OS, which I call mtext. So mtext supports left, right, and center justification, bold and emphatic text styles that are defined using the themes utility. It has horizontal dividers. It does the dynamic text wrapping. It has absolute colors, such as this text here is in an absolute color. And it also has support for hyperlinks, which is kind of a thing that's coming. So the other thing I wanted to just point out here is that scroll bars actually have quite a bit of hidden functionality. You can click on these nub buttons here. You click on these arrow buttons, to scroll a little bit at a time. You can also click and hold on them, and it'll scroll continuously, like so. But you can also, there's some hidden features. So for example, you can hold the Commodore key and click once on the button to jump directly to the top or bottom of the field. You can also hold the Shift key and click and hold in order to scroll slowly one line at a time, which gives you sort of more precision. You can click on the track to scroll in pages, and you can click and hold on the track to scroll continuously in page increments. And then, of course, you can also grab the nub and scroll it. Plus, you have all the keyboard shortcuts that I showed in the test ground app. Okay. So next, I will use the Go menu to switch to my Pictures directory. And I will go into my Game Screenshots directory. And I'm going to double click on this screenshot here. Now, as it happens, I don't currently have any application assigned to open files with this extension. So what we get is we get this opener utility. So the opener shows us that the file type is PRG and that its extension is OCP. And then it presents us with these two tabs that show a list of all of the installed applications and installed utilities. So we can just choose an app that we want to open this file type with. So I'll choose Image Viewer. Now, if I wanted to assign Image Viewer as the default application to open this type of file, I could click Assign. Or alternatively, I can just click Open, and that will open this file in the selected application, but it'll only do it just this once without actually changing the assignment of, or without actually assigning this application to that file type. So here we are in the image viewer. And of course, to see the image, we just drag up on the status bar, and then we see that totally rad screenshot of Artillery Dual 90 or Artillery 90. And we can also go into, with a keyboard shortcut, we can go into full screen. Now, the file manager passes a file reference to open to the application, and then the application can use the, so this application uses the file extension to then go and look up a corresponding data type loader. So the data type loaders are globally available to all applications. The data type loader handles allocating the required memory and knows how to read the data in from this particular file format. And the data loader also provides metadata strings such as these here that the application can choose to render if it wants. Now, without returning to the file manager, I can choose options open image, and that's going to open the open utility, just like we saw at the beginning for picking a new desktop. But you note that this time, when I opened the open utility in the app launcher, it defaulted to a directory with some background images for the desktop. But here it defaults to a completely different place. It's a list of images. That's because the Open utility remembers where it last was on a per application basis. So I can, I'll just pick an image here, hit open. So this is an image that's in a different file format. So the application then goes and finds another, a different data type loader that handles this file format. And we get this cool image of Deep Space Nine with the wormhole in the background. And it has also provided different metadata strings. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show is that utilities really can be used in multiple applications. So let's say I wanted to change the name of this image file. I can choose options file info. And here we get the file info panel that is the exact same file info panel that was used in the file manager for changing file names. But now I have it inside this application, and I can change the name of this file without having to go back to the file manager. Yeah, and so there we go. That is, believe it or not, that took 26 minutes to present to you. And so I'm going to wrap up my demo there, and I'll just pop back, just go home here, back to the file manager. So you can find out more about this at c64os.com. I am currently working on some pretty big updates to the site that haven't gone live yet, including a complete rewrite of the user's manual that shows like everything in detail of what you can do. But that stuff is going to go live pretty soon as I kind of ramp up towards the release of version 1.0 that's coming this summer. And that's it. If I want to open it up to questions.
Yeah, so
thanks a lot, Greg. I see there is a first question that was in the text in the chat. Is this running in text mode with custom font?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, but you display graphics, so you have a raster split there.
Yeah. So the primary user interface is made on the text, like the text mode. It uses a custom character set. The character set is kind of divided into a few different regions. So there's a segment. It loads a custom character set that's always in memory that that includes some graphical characters for doing like very, very common things like checkboxes and little grippy handles and arrows and stuff. And then there's a segment that's dedicated for utilities and applications to be able to use custom characters. So for example, if I say about this app, you get like, you get this icon here of this application, but this icon is making use of sort of a segment of the character set that's dedicated to custom characters. And then the raster split is, there's a graphics, C64 OS has support for shared libraries. And one of those is a graphics library that introduces a raster split that's built into the OS. So applications can tap into that and basically just they just point at the library, the graphics data and the format. And then you can drag up this splitter, the status bar to get a raster split wherever you want.
Nice, really nice. Thanks.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it based off of Amiga Workbench 3.1? Because I remember Amiga Workbench 3.1 and it had basically the same menu, the options on top, the palette, palette chooser. So that basically what you did with the background and the palette exactly. And so I was just wondering, was it built off of Amiga Workbench?
It's not built. Thanks for the question. It's not built off of the Amiga Workbench. I mean, this is written in 100% 6502 specifically for the Commodore 64. But I love operating systems, and I do, I take ideas from here and there to try and do so. So for example, and I have Amigas as well. So for example, you can right click on the menu bar. You can right click or left click. So if you're an Amiga user and you feel really comfortable right clicking on the menu bar to get your menus, you can do that. The raster split thing is a little bit kind of Amiga inspired. Also, I didn't really show it here, but maybe I have the time. In addition to just showing graphics, you can also use the graphical mode below the split for interactive content. So in this is a work in progress here, but I have this chess application where I can drag the split up, and all of a sudden, this content is actually like live here. So it's you're not just limited to just showing graphics, but you can actually interact with the graphical content as well. So that, it's kind of Amiga-like, but the Amiga has way more hardware to make it, faster and easier.
Now I've got another question. Will
Sure,
this
yeah.
work off of Kung Fu Flash and regular BASIC, or do I need REU or something?
Yeah, great, good question. So I've tried to keep the hardware requirements as low as possible. It doesn't require an REU. It can use an REU. If you have one, there's all kinds of little things in the system that get accelerated and stuff if you have one available. But the one main requirement is a storage device with native support for subdirectories. And the reason for that is because it's like Amiga Workbench. I mean, the system is quite large, and yeah, so the supported devices for the boot device are SD2IEC is the main one. It's quite affordable, and there've been thousands of them have been sold. It also supports IDE 64. And then if you're so lucky to have some of the old CMD devices, like a CMD hard drive or a RAM link or an FD series drive, it supports those as well. Yeah.
How about the 1581?
So it can use a 1581. So I've got a 1581 set up right here. But for the system drive, it requires something that has like true native subdirectories, because the whole system is like built on like deeply organized subdirectories for everything. This 1581 has these subpartitions.
My Kung Fu Flash has subdirectories, so if I would load it, you can go into a folder and it has subdirectories in the folder. So I'm not sure what you mean by subdirectories. Yeah, so this is a common, I mean, I can look into Kung Fu Flash as well. So for example, people ask, like, can it boot directly off of a 1541 Ultimate, for example? I'm running this right now on an Ultimate 64. So, and it kind of has a 1541 Ultimate built in. Those devices do have kind of like a back-end mass storage device, like a USB key and a menu system that you can, like I can do this, and I can see these things here. But ultimately, this menu system is just used to mount a floppy disk image, and then it presents itself to the native Commodore 64 as just a floppy disk. So I'm using, on this Ultimate 64, I'm using the Ultimate 64 for 1541, 71, and 81 disk images. But then I also have an SD2IEC just plugged in, just popped in the back. Now, will a regular SD2IEC that I can get off of eBay, will it work for? Yeah. The SD2IECs come in like tons of different formats and at different price points with different capabilities. I'm using a cableless one that's kind of cool. You just pop it in the back. But yeah, they're available from a whole bunch of different vendors on eBay and elsewhere. So any vendor will work.
Yeah, they're all Yep, all the SD2IECs are the same. And if you want like the maximum speed, the IDE 64 is also commercially available, and I made specific support for it, and it's like wicked fast.
Well, I'll get that one then. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have full
Do you use
documentation?
then sorry, just to follow up a bit on that question. Are you using then the storage to dump the memory there? Or I think that there is also a question from Dusty there. How does it handle memory between opening files, and how much memory is left at startup for an application?
Yeah, I can show you that. I showed some things last year. I didn't really have time to show this year, but the status bar can be toggled through various modes, and it shows you how much memory is available in the at the end of the status bar in 2 of the 3 modes. And you can double click on that to get this memory utility. And the memory utility is showing us a live view of how memory is currently allocated. So there's dynamic memory allocation in the operating system, and when you switch from one application to another, the state of the application gets saved to the disk, and then the application gets expunged from memory and a whole new application gets loaded in, but the operating system's kernel stays memory resident. And then there's shared libraries that can get loaded at runtime, and they can be relocated into any available memory. But yeah, so for something that uses like a bitmap, the image viewer, for example, when I opened the open utility and it needs to load in a lot of stuff, and it needs to load in the directory, and who knows how long the directory might be, right? That requires a lot of memory. At a certain point, the utility is paying attention to how much memory is available, and if it starts to run low on memory, the utility actually shoots a low memory warning message at the application, and then the application actually expunges the current image data from memory in order to free up memory to load in the directories. And then when you pick another image file, the open utility gets dropped out of memory, memory gets freed up, and then the image gets loaded in. Yeah, and so an REU can help there as well, because there's libraries for making use of the REU, and it, you know, applications can shunt memory between the REU to speed up. But otherwise, they have to just write back to disk.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry,
Will
I interrupted someone else.
Will you be selling this on an SD card, like a micro SD, or what kind of SD?
Yes. Yeah. Very good. The commercial release is going to be made to an SD card, so it'll have like a paper manual with some other little doodads and an SD card mounted inside. So the SD card, you'll be able to just take the SD card and pop it right into an SD to IEC, and just boot right off of it. But SD cards are a great medium for distribution as well, because if you don't actually have an SD to IEC, you can still pop the SD card into like your PC or your Mac or whatever, and then you can install onto, say, Vice, or you could then copy the files from your PC to, say, an IDE64 or a CMD hard drive, and you can install onto there. So yeah, it'll be distributed on an SD card.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do you have do you already have like full documentation for how to program an app for this, so that someone who isn't you can do it?
Yeah, I haven't sunk very much time into the programmer's guide, but I do have a spot on my website that's called the Programmer's Guide, and it's kind of old right now because I started to work on it, but then I realized, you know, it's not such a great idea that I'm working on this, as everything was kind of in flux, and I realized, oh man, I've written this API stuff, and now I've gone and changed that API stuff. So after the version 1.0 release is made, I've been focusing on the user's guide first, and it's almost done. And then after the version 1.0 gets released, I'm going to turn my attention to the programmer's guide, and I'll write the programmer's guide against the APIs exactly as they were for the version 1.0 release.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does it come with a monitor?
A machine language monitor? I don't have a machine language monitor for C64 OS itself, but the build, like the distribution build, it does have a directory called C64 Tools. and that directory is for Commodore 64 like ready prompt programs. And there's a whole bunch of tools in there that I personally use for doing development. I think there's a monitor in there, but there's a bunch of things. It's there's a bunch of tools that I actually use for doing that development, but they run just from the ready prompt. I actually kind of see the system as being a little bit like the way the Amiga Workbench is, in the sense that, if you want to run a game, it's like you don't run the game with C64 OS in memory, but you can use the C64 OS. You can use C64 OS to launch into the game. And similarly, there are tools that you could. I just run tools from the ready prompt, and then for things that really require kind of like a desktop-like environment and like a kind of graphical toolkit, I would write them for C64 OS because it's so much more convenient.
And you never know how many other people are going to write for C64 OS, in the future.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people will.
All right, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right.
You are showing some links. What happened if we click these links?
In the text view thing.
Yes.
Yes. So they don't do anything right now, but they are supported in mtext. So the mtext can embed the link data and wrap text that the link data corresponds to, and then when it renders the text, you don't see the data of the link, but you do see the part that you can click that's colorized as a button. And when you click that, basically what happens is that it calls a callback in whatever application is embedding the rendering view. And the application then has to support what happened, like support what to do with the data of the link. So the first thing that it'll be used for is for like documentation. So you could just have a text file that contains a link, and when you click it, it's a reference to a linked text file that's also on disk. So you can navigate between linked document pages. But obviously, it's I don't want to say too much, but it's kind of laying the foundation for some form of text-based web browsing.
And do you have any terminal built in, or?
Yeah, so actually networking is a major thing that I want to do. And in fact, before I even began the project, I began it because I was thinking, well, I'd really like to write networking apps, but I don't want to just write them from scratch. And so it turned out that I wanted to build this whole system so that I could build networking apps. Like if I wanted to make an email client or something, it's like, I don't want to just write an email client from scratch. So, but then what's happened now is that every time I give a demo to people, everyone says, when can I get my hands on this? And so I've wanted to get C64 OS to the point where it has enough features that make it useful to people. And so, but I could also just keep developing forever. And so I need to sort of draw a point in the sand where I say, okay, this is useful, and I think that people will want to have this. So that point has been drawn prior to me adding the networking support that I want to add. But I would say as soon as version 1 is as soon as I put a bow on version 1 and ship it out the door, I'm gonna be focusing a lot on the networking side of things next.
Someone said in the comments, what will be your price for this?
I haven't announced a price yet. I'm still working on some deals with some potential deals for bundling the software with hardware. So I don't want to say anything that will get me in trouble. But that'll all be announced pretty soon on c64os.com.
Nice.
Thank you.
You mentioned it would be released this summer, but we have here some people from the Nordics, and they will celebrate midsummer next week. That means that for them, half summer is already gone. So when is summer for you?
So summer for me starts at midsummer. So summer for me starts at the summer solstice, and it will end at the autumn equinox. but I'm hoping it's going to be released sometime kind of mid season of summer in Canada. So, you know, again, I've got a lot of things that I still need to get finalized before it's truly ready to ship. So I don't want to be more specific and get myself in trouble, but, you know, sometime within the next probably couple of months, 2 months, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see a suggestion here for web links. How about showing a QR code on screen? Yeah, why not? That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, QR code rendering library to high res to the VIC2's high res mode would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Back to the memory, maybe there was, so you showed this this clipboard functionality. Is that the memory is then managed the same way like you explained with this with application, or is it just that the clipboard is a kind of variable that you just
okay?
Can you put more content in the clipboard and
Yeah.
manage the clipboard, like having multiple entries, or is it just one variable that is used?
Yeah, I understand the question perfectly. Yeah, so actually, let me just show from the utilities menu. I have a clipboard utility, so we can get a preview of what's on the clipboard. So this is showing the data type is text number. The size is 3 bytes. I got a date. This date's wrong because my SD2IC is not, its RTC is not working, or doesn't have an RTC. And this 40 is the number that I copied from the calculator when I was in the other application, right? So the only thing that actually gets stored in memory is these 2 pieces of metadata. So it stores how much content is on the clipboard and the data type of the clipboard. And the actual content itself here is written to disk. So if we go to the system directory and we have a clipboard directory, and the data is stored in this 0.d is the data of the 0th clipboard, because there could be support for multiple clipboards in the future. And then 0.t is the type. So when the OS boots up, it reads in the type. So it reads in like the size and type of data. And then applications can then know whether they can accept that type of data and how much data there is. And when they try to paste, there's a whole like clipboard API that reads the data in from the clipboard data file on disk. So yeah, it's tricky because, you know, if you already have, you know, let's say you have 28 kilobytes of text in memory and you're almost out of memory, and then you select half of that and you say, oh, I want to copy that to clipboard. It's like, okay, but you don't have, you know, you can't copy that to some other place in memory because you just don't have that place in memory. So the clipboard API streams the selection out to the clipboard data file.
Thank you.
Question. Shucks, I forgot my question.
Is there anybody else with a question? I don't think.
All right. There were lots of questions this year anyway, so thank you very much for your time.
Oh, I remember my question. Does it play?
Okay.
Does it play Muse or SID files? Does it have a music player on it, or?
Yeah, let me switch back to the app launcher here. I'm not sure whether, I don't know if you'll be able to hear this, but yeah, I recently added a SID playing library where I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this, but if we go to the timer, for example, we tick this down. Let's just go up like this. And I hit start here. When it hits the bottom, I don't know if you're going to hear this. Can you hear that through my mic?
Yes. At least I can hear it. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if you could hear
can
that,
hear
yeah. So the timer, for example, when it strikes 0, it loads in a SID file via a SID play library that I've written, and it can play the SIDs. The only caveat is that it's very, very unsafe to just play random SIDs. So I've been pumping SIDs through the SID relock tool that's available online, that relocates the 0 page that SIDs use and relocates what memory they use, in order to get them to click. A regular SID could just use any old 0 page address, and that's obviously not going to work because the operating system is already using a bunch of 0 page. And so if you just load like a random SID, it'll probably cause a crash because it'll overwrite, some critical operating system 0 page address. But relocating SIDs works really great.
So you need more like an address of 1000 or a D420 or something, right?
Yeah, my preferred address is 2000. Like when I relocate them to 2000. I mean, they can be relocated to anywhere that's kind of within like the heap memory range, but 2000 is usually not used. So it's a good spot to relocate them to.
I know next time I make some music, I'll locate them to address 2000.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Thanks a lot.
right.
I think we're coming to an end here. I will stop recording. I don't see
Okay.
any more questions, so
I will stop sharing my screen. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks.